Now's the time to make a wish, buy a lottery ticket, or start praying and preparing for the end of days, because the stars have aligned, my friends. Donald Trump, a Democrat, and CNN seem to be in agreement directing criticism at the Biden administration over the escalating crisis and the failure to deal with it. During the Donald Trump administration, he got the number of migrants coming in the southern border under control. Right now, it is wildly out of control, with the latest report being that ICE is buying hotel rooms. Apparently, what are they spending? Like $86 million, an $86 million contract to buy hotel rooms near the border for migrants. It is so bad that you have, quote, "It's a breach of national security not seen before in modern history," says Democrat Texas mayor. You have CNN. CNN joins other networks criticizing Biden for denying press access to border operations, and a statement from Donald Trump where he says the Mayorkas gag order on our nation's heroic border agents and ICE officers should be the subject of an immediate congressional investigation, but it's clear they are engaged in a huge cover-up to hide just how bad things truly are. My friends, I would like to make it very simple for you. Donald Trump and CNN agree. That's it. It's over. How is this happening? CNN is supposed to be the orange man bad network. We know that, right? But perhaps they're just the contrarian network. They're always trying to find a villain or boogeyman that's going to rile people up and make them money through rage clicks. When Donald Trump was president, it was Trump. And now that Trump is not president, they can't blame Trump. So it seems like they're starting to go after Biden. I'll tell you, man. It is, I welcome it, should that be the case, because Biden is worthy of criticism. I think they went over the top with Donald Trump. Of course, Trump is worthy of a lot of criticism, but it was so over the top. It was just bonkers. It was just nuts. Then they say nothing about Democrats. Well, now I think we are seeing that Democrats are going to be fair game as well. The first thing we should look at is what they're doing with this $86 million contract, because this is insane. The crisis has gotten so bad. I think they're dealing with like 1,000 plus per day or more. February, 100,000 migrants. There's an interview apparently that came out where one illegal immigrant said the only reason they came was because Joe Biden basically opened the door. And they would have never have tried this under Trump because Trump was not letting people in. Let's take a look at the story, and then we'll take a look at how there's a Democrat mayor saying it's the greatest national security threat we've not seen in a long time. We've seen in a long time. Axios reports the Biden administration has awarded an $86 million contract for hotel rooms near the border to hold around 1,200 migrant family members who cross the U.S.-Mexico border, DHS officials confirmed to Axios. It's a sign of growing numbers of migrant families trying to come to the U.S., in addition to an already overwhelming number of kids crossing the border without their parents or legal guardians. Both trends appear to be straining government resources. The contract through Endeavors, a Texas-based nonprofit, is for 6 months, but could be extended and expanded. The hotels will be near border areas, including in Arizona and Texas. ICE oversees the custody of migrant adults and families who cross the border illegally after they are apprehended by Border Patrol agents. The agency is already transforming its family detention centers into rapid processing centers with the goal of releasing families within 72 hours. This is probably the worst border crisis we've ever seen. Here's what's happening. Under Donald Trump, with the build the wall stuff, with the remain in Mexico policies, many migrants stopped trying to go on these dangerous journeys to make it here. But when Joe Biden set a moratorium on deportation in the first 100 days, which he did not win, by the way, many saw an opportunity to come in now that Trump was gone, and they've started to come in large numbers. There's no way for us to deal with this. For the Democrats who are desperate to appease the progressives, they're under fire because they have child migrant detention facilities. Kids in cages. That's what they called it. What are they supposed to do now? Well, they have to put the kids somewhere. They can't just have kids wandering the desert and dying. So much like under Donald Trump, I don't think it's wrong to take kids and be like, they're better off here than out in the middle of nowhere. But Biden can't handle the heat. As more and more migrants start flooding in, he's desperate. the Democrats are getting angry. Now he's spending $86 million on hotels. Think about that. You enter the country illegally. They'll put you up in a hotel room. Think about this. They say they want to release families within 72 hours. Every single thing he is doing is going to make this worse. Yeah. See, more people are now going to see, hey, I get a hotel. Within 3 days, I'm in the U.S. Done. And they're going to start coming in larger and larger numbers. We've already got reports of more migrant caravans on their way. Mexico is doing everything they can. Well, they say they're doing everything they can to try and stop these Guatemalan and Honduran migrants coming through their border. But we saw this play out during the Trump administration. At the southern Mexico border, migrants in these caravans were rushing past the Mexican law enforcement and border control. So I got to say, so long as Joe Biden keeps saying we're going to pay for everything and you'll be out in 3 days, even if you have COVID, because there was 108 COVID positive patients. This is wow. I mean, Joe Biden is quite possibly. I'll just. It's early in his administration, so we'll see how this plays out. But let me just say, you can't travel. COVID lockdown is resulting in people being unable to travel. But Joe Biden is seemingly doing everything in his power to incentivize more people to come. So much so that Trump and CNN are critical of the administration's response. Check this out. It's a breach of national security not seen before in modern history. Democrat Texas mayor slams Biden for doing nothing about immigration disaster that's left his small town swamped by 150 migrants per day. They say Bruno Lozano, the Democrat mayor of Del Rio, 150 miles west of San Antonio, said that he was pleading with Washington, D.C. to help his town. He said his town of 35,000 people currently sees 150 migrants arriving a day, but they do not have the resources to cope. Quote, you have a breach of national security levels that you have never before seen in modern history. And you're not even batting an eye about it. You're not even calling it a crisis. You're calling it a quote unquote challenge, he told the New York Post. It's a slap in the face. Remarkable, man. This is crazy. Lozano, 38, said he'd been trying since February to get Biden's attention. Shortly before the winter storm hit last month, he sent a video to Biden asking that migrants be prevented from resettling in his community because he did not have the resources necessary. Mr. President, my name is Bruno Lozano, mayor of the city of Del Rio, Texas, and I am pleading and requesting with you to please put a halt to any measures regarding the release of immigrants awaiting court dates into the city of Del Rio and surrounding areas, he said, with footage of empty store shelves and grocery store lines in the background. We do not have the resources available to house and accommodate these migrants within our community. If you do send these individuals into our community, we'll be forced to make a decision to leave them without resources under these dire circumstances. I am asking to please stop. Please make another plan for this federal issue. It's not going to happen. This is a disaster, my friends. The Biden administration is currently struggling to cope with the surge in migrant arrivals. Of particular concern are the number of unaccompanied children. Border Patrol apprehended 561 lone minors across the U.S.-Mexico border on March 15th, up from a daily average of 332 per day in February. On a March 18th call, senior Biden administration officials told reporters that about 14,000 migrant children who had arrived without a parent or guardian were in U.S. government custody. Biden on Sunday addressed the issue as he returned to the White House from Camp David, from the Camp David presidential retreat, and said he would visit the border region at some point, although he gave no specific timetable. When asked what more could be done to convince migrant families to stop coming across the border, Biden told reporters, quote, a lot more. We are in the process of doing it now, including making sure we reestablish what existed before, which is they can stay in place and make their case from their home countries. Oh, it's almost like Joe Biden wants to embrace Donald Trump's policies. The number of unaccompanied migrant children in U.S. custody surpassed 15,000 as of Saturday. Nearly 1,000 children have reportedly been held by agents for more than 10 days. Biden's team have claimed that Trump bears responsibility for the crush of people at the border because the former president dismantled much of the system that was in place to process asylum requests. Now, because much of the apparatus to process asylum seekers has been done away with, there's a crush of people at the border and not enough infrastructure in place to process them, they say. Lozano said the Biden administration was simply shifting the blame. Quote, I'm not trying to demonize the humanitarian aspect by any means, but my responsibility is to the city of Del Rio and the residents of Del Rio, Texas. My responsibilities are to the American people that got me elected. Nobody wants to actually tackle the issue. You're condoning unlawful behavior, period. There's a lawful way to enter the U.S., there's a lawful way to seek asylum, and it just undermines the entire immigration process. That is Joe Biden's plan. Lozano told the Post he was angry that his town's budget had to be spent on what he saw as a federal problem. It's not even in our budget. Every line item is accounted for in municipal government. We are very fine-tuned in budget. It's not appropriate. It just blows my mind how disconnected from reality they are. Or maybe they do know. Maybe they just don't want to call a spade because it's uncomfortable. The mayor said that migrants were brought to the Val Verde Border Humanitarian Coalition, where they have access to services before boarding flights and buses out of town. If they cannot move on, the town needs to find a place for them to sleep. That's when the logistical nightmare begins. Where are they going to sleep for the night? That's the number I worry about each day. Sometimes migrants get released after hours and there's nowhere to put them. I can't use the Civic Center because I'm using that for COVID vaccines. Joe Biden, what are you doing? Oh, wow, man. Ladies and gentlemen, a statement from former President Donald Trump that I'm going to read to you in its entirety. It's not particularly long. And now I want to get to the what I think is the most shocking sign that Joe Biden is failing. CNN and Trump agreeing on something. Yikes. Before I read this, I'll say I've been speculating about the possibility that Joe Biden does such a miserable job as president, fails, that we end up seeing a Trump or a DeSantis in 2024, a very, very heavy swing. So throughout Trump's term, there were a lot of signs he was doing really well and was looking at re-election, notably Moody's Analytics, which said, so long as the economy remains strong, Trump will be reelected and Democrats will need a historic turnout in order to win. Surprisingly, even though the economy took a massive downturn due to COVID, the Democrats still required a historic turnout to win. Donald Trump was at 74.2 million votes. Were it not for the historic turnout for Joe Biden, Trump would have won. Is it possible then, and it may be, that come 2024, Donald Trump may run again? We don't know. But you will have all of this historic vote lost for two reasons. Joe Biden's failure as a president, which, again, it's very early. He may actually end up doing really, really well. And we'll see. There's a lot of variables between now and then. But if Joe Biden is doing this bad now and he ends up doing worse later, could people lose confidence in Joe Biden? Or is it likely that Joe Biden's not going to be able to run for a second term anyway? He's just too old. In which case, Kamala Harris, who is wildly unpopular, just does not have what it takes to win again. We go through these 4 years of tumult and then we end up with a DeSantis. Maybe not. But here's the thing. It often swings Democrat, Republican for a few reasons. Right now, you have the Democrats in power. If they can't do it right, the Republicans get to say, see, look what the Democrats did. It's the Democrats' fault. And then people are going to go, yeah, because the Democrats are in power. And then they're going to vote Republican. It's a stupid system. Don't get me wrong. But that's a good reason to suspect that right now it's looking good for Republicans moving forward. Donald Trump issued this statement. He said, we proudly handed the Biden administration the most secure border in history. All they had to do was keep the smooth running system on autopilot. Instead, in the span of just a few weeks, the Biden administration has turned a national triumph into a national disaster. They are in way over their heads and taking on water fast. The pathetic, clueless performance of Secretary Mayorkas on the Sunday shows today was a national disgrace. His self-satisfied presentation in the middle of the massive crisis he helped engineer is yet more proof he is incapable of leading DHS. Even someone of Mayorkas' limited abilities should understand that if you provide catch and release to the world's illegal aliens, then the whole world will come. Furthermore, the Mayorkas gag order on our nation's heroic border agents and ICE officers should be the subject of an immediate congressional investigation. But it's clear they're engaged in a huge cover-up to hide just how bad things truly are. The only way to end the Biden border crisis is for them to admit their total failure and adopt the profoundly effective proven Trump policies, which it seems like they actually are in some circumstances. They must immediately complete the wall, which can be done in a matter of weeks. They should never have stopped it. They are causing death and human tragedy. In addition to the obvious, drugs are pouring into our country at record levels from the southern border, not to mention human trafficking. This administration's reckless policies are enabling and encouraging crimes against humanity. Our country is being destroyed. In a shocking twist that nobody saw coming, CNN joins other networks criticizing Biden for denying press access to border operations. How is it? It's not just CNN. Donald Trump and the media are agreeing. I think it just shows that much of the media's intent is rage bait content. Okay. Now, look, Donald Trump smacked down Joe Biden and Mayorkas is self-satisfactory or whatever. It's like, come on. I read that and I'm like, Trump, you're the guy who wanted your name on the COVID checks. You're the guy who went up and said, we're doing a tremendous job. It's the best job. It's all you ever did. All right. Mayorkas is coming out saying he's doing a good job as well when he's not. If I'm going to criticize what he's doing, it's going to be for legitimate reasons. Now, here's the issue. During COVID, when Donald Trump was praising himself, we had no objective metric by which to compare Donald Trump. We had not dealt with the COVID pandemic before. Based on the numbers they projected, Trump seemed to have been doing a good job. How else could you describe it? I mean, even when I had Vosh on my show, we agreed on that point. There's no comparable metric. It's not happened before. So you either like Trump or you don't. With the border crisis, we do have an objective metric by which to judge Joe Biden, and it's Donald Trump's presidency. Under Trump's policies, under his rhetoric, the amount of migrants coming in was slowing down. We still dealt with a crisis, mind you. And it is still early for Joe Biden. Maybe he can get a hold of this and actually prove Trump wrong. But for the time being, right now, based on what Trump had accomplished and had in place, Joe Biden is doing a bad job and, more importantly, gagging the press. Fox News reports CNN's Pamela Brown examined the migrant surge and overwhelmed Border Patrol facilities in a segment over the weekend, telling viewers that as the situation at the U.S.-Mexico border gets worse, the media is being kept from it. TV commentator Tom Borelli noted the network's apparent shift in tone on Twitter, writing Sunday, so Joe Biden's border crisis is so bad, even CNN is criticizing his effort to hide the crisis from the media. Even MSNBC did. It was really funny. You had Jacob Sobroff, who was like, we know that Joe Biden's committed to doing a good job to help migrants, but you got to let the press in. And it's just like he's trying to just dip his toes in the water a little bit. Like, we're not getting access. We have to say it, but we don't want to be mean to Joe Biden. Okay. Be mean to Trump all day and night. Fine. I don't care. But call out Joe Biden when you need to call out Joe Biden. My issue with the media is the lies, right? That's the point. Everybody knows that Donald Trump, there's things to criticize him for. But the media the media turned it up to 11 on just everything. Trump could fart and they were like, it's the apocalypse. Trump, how dare he? Trump's salt shakers were too big. Joe Biden's got a migrant crisis on his hand and they're like, well, now it's kind of bad. But, Joe, just lay it on, man. I think what we might start seeing is a media that realizes Biden can be that villain. He can't be the same villain, but he can be the villain they need. He can be the guy who's screwing everything up. Or maybe this Mayorkas dude. So the Biden administration came under renewed fire over the weekend for denying access to the media to observe customs and border operations at the southern border. Award-winning photojournalist John Moore took to Twitter to lament the lack of transparency as a surge of migrants trying to enter the country has put a strain on resources. Quote, I respectfully ask U.S. Customs and Border Protection to stop blocking media access to their border operations, Moore tweeted Friday. I have photographed CBP under Bush, Obama, and Trump, but now zero access is granted to the media. These long lens images taken from the Mexican side. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki has been repeatedly questioned about media access to the Border Patrol facilities. Think about this. Even Donald Trump allowed the press, but Joe Biden's not. I'm going to say it. The only thing I can assume at this point, then, Joe Biden, is that it is worse than we realize. Even under Trump, as bad as it was with the migrant caravans, with the kids in cages and all that rhetoric, Trump allowed the press access. Some despot, he could have just shut the press down, right? No, he let them come in. He let the press in. And there were tours of these facilities. You see, Trump really believed the truth would set him free, not realizing the media would just frame everything as the worst possible, reality to make Trump look bad. See, Joe Biden gets it. He knows that you've got to treat people like mushrooms. Keep them in the dark and feed them waste. It's an old saying, right? Joe Biden knows that if you tell people the truth, they will then know the truth. And if the truth is bad, you're better off just covering it up. And that's why we end up with the media and Donald Trump in agreement. It's amazing, really. For all that the press screamed about Donald Trump, he still gave them access. Not to every single thing. There was a period where he didn't have press conferences and they freaked out. Well, Joe Biden has not either. He's apparently going to have one soon, I guess. And the media isn't freaking out. Conservatives are. It's about time the media woke up and started criticizing a guy who is doing a bad job. Because when you have Democrat mayors coming out saying it, and you have Donald Trump saying it, you got Democrat and Republican, the media, it's okay. You can finally now admit it. Joe Biden is not good. Oh, no. I know you helped prop him up with Silicon Valley blocking the news, with NPR saying we don't report on non-stories about Hunter Biden. And now that we all know it's true, and they were forced to report it, congratulations. Your guy won, and now you can come out and admit he's awful. That's what they're doing, right? I mean, I think it's going to be really amazing over the next few years as these outlets continually criticize Joe Biden for his failures, assuming they do, assuming he fails. He has more failures. Again, I know it's still early. And then what do you think all these regular people are going to say when they're like, but dudes, you told us to vote for him, and now it's worse than ever. 2024 going to be lit. I don't know exactly what's going to happen because I think it's bold to try and make a prediction 3 years out. I often say things like, here's what could happen, not here's what will happen, for a reason. It is possible that Trump comes back 78 years old or whatever and wins in a landslide or something. Is it likely? Honestly, I wouldn't say it's likely simply because there's too many variables. But it's looking like DeSantis is doing really well. So for the time being, these are our prospects. I think people looking at this are probably souring. And we'll see if the tribal cultists of, the left are able to break through the matrix and realize what's happening, or if they'll just happily dote along because, like with Obama, that's what they do. Obama was dropping bombs on civilians, and the anti-war left just kind of disappeared for a little bit. And that's right. That may be the case. And we'll see how it plays out in the next election. Perhaps it may lead to a swing in 2022. I'm not sure. Right now, Democrats have it. And with that power, there's a lot they can do to shut down the ability of conservatives to win, of the Republicans to win. So I guess we'll see. A lot can happen between now and then. But for the time being, it seems that hell is freezing over and the end of days may be near because the media and Trump agree with each other. All right. I'll leave it there. Next segment is coming up later today on this channel, and I will see at 1 p.m., and I will see you all then.